Part 1. The mist hung low over the Appalachian Mountains like a ghost's breath, clinging to the peaks and folding into the narrow valleys below. Pines loomed like silent sentinels, their black needles bristling against the wind's soft moan. The trail was barely visible, swallowed by underbrush and years of disuse, but the group pressed forward, boots crunching over frost-hardened soil. "Are we even still on the path?" Rachel asked, squinting at her phone. "No signal." "Almost there," Wes replied, brushing aside a branch. "Old mining town should be just past that ridge." "According to what?" scoffed Tyler. "That sketchy Reddit post or the drunk guy at the gas station?" Wes grinned. "Both." Rachel rolled her eyes but said nothing. She adjusted her backpack and followed him up the incline, her breath forming pale clouds in the cold air. Behind them, Lena hesitated. The wind had shifted, bringing with it a faint sound too faint to name. A whisper? A wheeze? She couldn't be sure. She turned around, staring down the long path behind them. Nothing. Just trees and fog. "Hurry up, slowpoke," Tyler called. She forced a smile and jogged up to join the others. The town came into view as they crested the ridge, a scattering of half-rotted buildings sprawled along a crooked hillside, barely visible through the thick fog. Sagging roofs, broken windows, rusted lantern poles, it looked like it had been ripped straight from the 1800s and then abandoned to time and rot. "Holy shit," Wes whispered. "We actually found it." "Welcome to Black Hollow," Tyler muttered. "Population, for idiots with poor decision-making skills." Wes ignored him, raising his phone to take pictures. "Legend says this place got swallowed whole by the mountain after a cave-in. Miners, their families, gone overnight." Lena shivered. "Why do all your weekend plans sound like setups for a horror movie?" "Because it's fun?" Wes replied, grinning. "Besides, we're here now. Might as well look around." They descended into the remains of Black Hollow, boots kicking through fallen leaves and broken glass. A rusted minecart sat overturned by the entrance of a collapsed tunnel, its track twisted like a broken spine. Wind whistled through the hollow buildings, stirring old curtains and creaking warped doors. Time felt strange here. Still. Watching. They split up to explore, just for a few minutes, Wes insisted. Rachel poked through what might have once been a general store, its shelves covered in mold and mouse droppings. Lena wandered into a house whose front porch had half collapsed. Tyler kicked rocks down a well and listened for the splash. Wes walked to the church. Its steeple leaned at an odd angle, like a finger pointing towards something buried. Inside, he found nothing at first. Then he saw the symbol on the altar. A circle of black stones, laid out with strange precision. At its center sat a crude carving of a face, not human. Its eyes were hollow, and its mouth gaped open in a silent scream. He reached out. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the air shifted. A low hum rose from beneath the floorboards. The temperature dropped. The shadows stretched. And something deep in the mine, something that had waited in silence for over 100 years, stirred. Part 2. Wes jerked his hand back from the altar, heart thudding against his ribs. The hum stopped as abruptly as it began, leaving behind a silence that was somehow louder than before. He stared at the crude face, now dusted with fine black ash that hadn't been there seconds ago. Goosebumps rose on his arms. "Guys," he called out, voice dry and tight. No response. He turned to leave, but the warped door resisted, groaning on its hinges like a living thing. With a grunt, he shoved it open and stepped outside. The fog had thickened, cloaking the street in a pale blur. The silhouettes of the others were gone. "Rachel," he called again, louder. "Tyler? Lena?" Nothing. Just wind. A sudden crunch of leaves behind him made him whirl. Empty air. But he swore he'd heard footsteps. Then Rachel's voice, faint and distorted, "Wes?" He followed it, moving quickly now, every instinct screaming. He ducked past a gutted building and rounded a corner only to find Lena standing dead still in the middle of the road, facing away from him. "Lena," he exhaled, relieved. I thought. She didn't respond. He walked closer. Hey, are you okay? She slowly turned. Her eyes were wide, glassy, unfocused. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Wes reached her and touched her shoulder. She blinked rapidly, like waking from a dream. Wes, she gasped. It's under the ground. It's not dead. He froze. What? I heard it, she whispered. It's humming. In my head. A door slammed shut somewhere nearby. Wes turned toward the sound and saw Rachel sprinting toward them, eyes wide with panic. We need to go, she panted. Now. Tyler's gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? Wes asked. I heard him yelling. Then it just stopped. I found his flashlight in the well. Nothing else. Wes's blood ran cold. No. He was right here a minute ago. We have to get out of here, Rachel said. This place isn't right. Wes looked around. The fog was curling in tighter now, swallowing what little light remained. The trees, the buildings, they all felt too close, warped somehow, like the mountain was bending reality around them. A distant voice echoed through the fog. A man's voice. Calling. Chanting. It wasn't Tyler. Rachel grabbed Wes's arm. Please. Let's go. But Lena was staring at the church, her face pale. The altar, she whispered. He touched it. You woke it up. Something moved across the road fast, tall, wrong. They ran. Part 3. Their footsteps pounded against the frozen ground, echoing through the skeletal streets of Black Hollow. Wes led the way, the others just behind him, hearts pounding in rhythm with the crunch of dry leaves beneath their boots. Fog swallowed their trail, thick as smoke, chasing them with a will of its own. Where's the trail? Rachel cried, looking around frantically. The ridge they had climbed hours ago was gone, replaced by a wall of mist and forest that hadn't been there before. We came from that way, Wes said, pointing. I remember the sign. The mine cart. But the rusted cart was gone. So was the road. So were the trees he swore had been there. No, 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 Rachel muttered, spinning in place. This isn't possible. It's the mountain, Lena said quietly. Her voice was flat, almost distant. It doesn't want us to leave. Rachel turned on her. What are you even talking about? Lena didn't flinch. There's something beneath us. Buried. It knows we're here. Wes took a breath. We stick together. We go back to the church, at least it's shelter. We wait until morning. Maybe the fog will clear. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. The look on her face changed. Wes followed her gaze. At the edge of the fog stood a figure. Too tall. Arms too long. Its head cocked at an unnatural angle, like it was listening. It didn't move. Wes backed up slowly. To the church. Now. They didn't run this time, they crept, as if sound might provoke the thing. It didn't follow. But Wes could feel it. Watching. Just out of sight. Inside the church, the air was colder than outside. The breath misted in their lungs. The carved stone face still sat on the altar, and now a thin trickle of black liquid had begun to seep from its mouth, staining the wood below. They huddled in the corner. Lena sat nearest to the altar, staring at it with glassy eyes. What even is that thing? Rachel asked. That carving, what does it mean? I think it's a seal, Lena said. To keep whatever's below us asleep. Well, it's not asleep anymore, Rachel snapped. And he's. Wes reached out, gently touching her arm. We'll get him back. We'll figure this out. The floor creaked. They all looked up. The altar had changed. The carving's eyes were now open. Part 4. The carved stone face now stared straight at them, its hollow eyes wide and sunken, its expression twisted in agony or hunger. A soft noise echoed through the church, like breath being drawn through crumbling stone. Rachel stumbled back. No. No. That was sealed. It was sealed, right? I didn't mean to touch it, Wes said, his voice hoarse. I didn't know, how could I have known? You felt it, Lena whispered. Her gaze hadn't left the altar. Didn't you? That thing, it reached through you. It used you. Wes didn't answer. He couldn't. That moment, touching the stone, it had felt like lightning crawling under his skin. Like 1,000 eyes opening behind his own. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A dull thump sounded beneath their feet, like something massive shifting in the earth. Then again. Closer. Dust rained down from the rafters. The windows, already cracked, began to hum, vibrating like struck glass. I'm not staying here, Rachel said, grabbing her pack. I don't care what's out there, we can't stay in here with that. Before Wes could reply, Lena stood. Her hand hovered over the altar now, trembling. Lena, he asked, stepping toward her. What are you doing? I hear it calling, she said in a hollow voice. It's in my head. Like it remembers me. Wes pulled her away. Snap out of it. She blinked hard, then staggered backward as though waking from a dream. Sorry. I don't know what that was. A distant scream shattered the silence. It was Tyler. Rachel's head snapped toward the sound. He's alive. No, Lena said, stepping toward the broken doorway. That wasn't him. But Rachel was already gone out into the fog again. Damn it! Wes shouted, chasing after her. Lena followed close behind. The fog outside was thicker than ever, pulsing around them like a living thing. Shapes moved just beyond the range of sight, too quiet, too fast. Then, up ahead, they saw Rachel. She was frozen at the edge of a clearing, staring into something wide and yawning. It was the mine entrance. Collapsed long ago, supposedly. But now, the stones had been pushed aside. The earth had opened. From the black mouth of the tunnel, a wet wind blew, reeking of sulfur, rot, and ancient stone. We shouldn't be here, Lena said. Wes nodded. But Tyler might be in there. Rachel glanced back, torn. Then the chanting began again, closer this time. Voices rising from the dark. And something started coming up from the mine. Part 5. The figure that emerged from the mine was limping, its form bent and hunched. In the fog-blurred light, it looked vaguely human. Its skin was gray, stretched too tightly across its bones, like parchment left to dry in the sun. Wes instinctively stepped in front of the others, shielding them. Tyler? Rachel asked, her voice cracking. Is that you? The figure stopped. Its head jerked toward her at a strange, insectal angle. It opened its mouth, and a sound spilled out, not a word, but a long, rasping exhale that vibrated in their bones. It smelled like decay. Then it screamed. The noise was inhuman, like metal tearing against stone, and the thing lunged. Wes shoved Rachel aside as the creature leapt. It moved with a speed no twisted, broken body should have had. Wes rolled, grabbing a rusted length of pipe from the ground, and swung it blindly. The blow connected with a wet crack, and the creature crumpled. But it didn't stay down. Its limbs twitched, then snapped back into place with sickening pops. We have to run. Lena screamed. They sprinted into the trees, branches tearing at their clothes. Behind them, the creature shrieked again, joined now by more voices. Echoes rose from the mine like a choir of the damned. Wes risked a glance behind. Figures were climbing out of the tunnel, thin, broken, dozens of them. Faces slack, eyes hollow, flesh clinging to ancient bones. Some wore tatters of mining uniforms, others the dresses of women and children. All of them were wrong. Black Hollow, Lena gasped between breaths, didn't collapse. Wes realized it too. It was buried. Rachel stumbled but caught herself. They never left. They've been down there this whole time. No, Lena corrected grimly, they weren't alive down there. Not exactly. The forest around them began to change again, trees shifting places, paths looping back on themselves. The mountain was folding in, trapping them. They burst into a clearing one Wes recognized. The well. They'd circled back. We're going in circles. Rachel shouted, panicking. We're stuck. From the trees, shapes emerged. Dozens. Moving as one. Then Lena dropped to her knees beside the well, clutching her head. It's in me. Wes dropped beside her. What do you mean? She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly with pale light. It knows I can hear it. It wants me to open the rest. Part 6. Wes stared at her. Open the rest. What rest? Lena's voice came out soft and trembling. There are more seals. The altar was just one. This place, it's not just haunted. It's bound. And I think I can see the bindings now. What are you saying? Rachel asked, backing away. That you're part of this? No, Lena said, eyes brimming with panic and awe. Not part of it. Chosen. Wes grabbed her by the shoulders. Lena, you're not making sense. Snap out of it. But her gaze pierced right through him. It's not just calling. It's remembering. Me. Us. The mountain remembers everything. From the trees came the sound of feet, soft at first, then heavier. The reawakened dead were closing in. Their moans stitched together into an eerie chant, rising in pitch like a dirge pulled from the bottom of a dream. We need to move. Now, Rachel said, voice cracking. Lena shook her head. If I don't seal it, they'll never stop. It'll spread. The mountain, it's just the beginning. Wes turned, eyes scanning for options. Then he saw it. Just beyond the clearing, hidden by overgrown vines, stood a second structure. Squat, stone, and crumbling. A circular foundation built into the side of a hill. No windows. No door. A seal. Lena, look. He pointed. She blinked, breathing shallow. Yes. That's one. Then let's go, he said, helping her to her feet. They rushed toward it, Rachel dragging a fallen branch behind her as a crude weapon. The sounds of the dead followed, shuffling, scraping through the forest like a tidal wave of decay. The stone structure pulsed faintly as they approached. Lena reached it first, dropping to her knees before a central slab half buried in moss. It's under here, she whispered. Wes and Rachel began pulling at the overgrowth, clearing soil and vines. Beneath it, etched deep into the rock, was a familiar symbol, a variation of the face from the church altar, but this one had its mouth closed. Lena pressed her hand to it. The earth shuddered. A light burst from the seal, cold, violet white. The sound of the chanting stopped mid-note, replaced by a screech like wind being torn apart. Back in the trees, the dead froze. And then began to scream. Part 7. The light from the seal grew brighter, casting stark shadows through the trees. The forest lit up in flashes, dead faces, twisted limbs, wide unblinking eyes. The creatures writhed and clutched at their skulls, shrieking in unison as if the light itself were peeling the rot from their bones. Lena's hand trembled against the stone. Her lips moved rapidly, whispering words she didn't seem to recognize. What's happening? Rachel shouted, shielding her eyes. She's closing it, Wes said. Whatever was keeping it locked before, she's doing it again. The ground cracked beneath the stone slab. The carving's mouth, once closed, split down the middle with a jagged line, and the light poured through like blood from a wound in the world. A force pressed outward, then inward, like reality itself was breathing through the fissure. Lena cried out. Her body arched as the light flared, and something black began seeping from her eyes and ears, streaming into the air like smoke caught in reverse. Wes grabbed her. Lena! Let go. You're bleeding. I can't, she gasped. It's holding me. Rachel turned, eyes wide. They're moving again. The dead surged forward, stumbling over each other, driven not by hunger now, but by fear. Fear of the light. Fear of her. One broke through the tree line, arms reaching. Wes swung the pipe and knocked it back with a wet crack, but another followed. Then another. They're trying to stop her, he shouted. Rachel rushed forward, grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the ground, and stood beside him. Then we don't let them. They fought like cornered animals, driven by instinct, rage, and the sickening knowledge that if they failed, nothing would survive. Lena screamed one last time as the seal pulsed and the earth split open beneath the stone. A column of light burst upward, swallowing the clearing. Everything went silent. The undead stopped moving. Then, as if jerked by invisible strings, they crumbled, falling to the ground like empty coats. Lena collapsed. Wes caught her before her head hit the stone. She was shaking, eyes glassy, face pale. One down, she whispered. One? Rachel asked, breathless. There are more? Lena nodded weakly. 3 more. 3 more seals. And the last one is broken. Part 8. Rain began to fall, light at first, a drizzle that barely touched the scorched earth where the seal had burned. But it felt cleansing, like the mountain was exhaling after holding its breath for too long. Wes gently laid Lena against a tree trunk. Her skin was cold and damp, and her eyes flickered like a dying candle. Rachel crouched beside them. She needs rest. We don't have time, Lena whispered. Her voice was threadbare, pulled tight with exhaustion. The last seal is broken. That's why the mountain's awake. Where is it? Wes asked. Lena stared upward, eyes distant. Deep. Farther down than we've ever gone. Where the rock breathes and the roots bleed. Rachel's hands curled into fists. This can't be real. This isn't real. This is some fever dream we got from bad water or a gas leak or. Then why does it still hurt? Lena asked softly. Rachel had no answer. The forest was quiet now. Unnaturally so. The fog had retreated, curling at the edge of the tree line like a living wall, letting them breathe but reminding them it could close again whenever it wanted. Wes helped Lena to her feet. If we're going deeper, we'll need supplies. Food, water, light. Rachel scoffed. From where? Everything here's ancient or rotted. I saw a cabin near the edge of town, Wes said. It looked boarded up but intact. Might be something left inside. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But if this turns into another death trap, I'm blaming you. They walked in silence back toward Black Hollow, the wind carrying whispers that no one dared to answer. The buildings looked even older now, like centuries had passed since they last stood there. The dead were gone. No trace of bones, clothes, or blood. Just dust. Settled like snow. The cabin stood apart from the others, crouched low beneath a canopy of black pines. Its door was chained shut, but the wood was soft with rot. Wes kicked it in. Inside, it smelled of old paper and kerosene. A single oil lamp sat on a wooden table, still filled. Next to it, maps. Dozens of them. Hand-drawn, aged. Each showed different layers of the mountain. Mines. Caves. Shafts. And symbols. The same face. Again and again. Lena stepped forward, pointing to the deepest tunnel. There, she said. That's where it sleeps. Wes stared at the map. The tunnel was marked with one word scrawled in red ink. Rootwake. Part 9. Wes traced the path on the map with his finger, lips moving silently. Rootwake lay beyond the oldest mining levels, deeper than the original shafts, where tunnels hadn't been touched since the Civil War. No official records mentioned it, but someone had drawn it here, in painstaking detail, as if they'd seen it firsthand. Who made these? Rachel whispered. The corner of one map bore a name, faded, barely legible. Thaddeus Crane. 1893. Lena's eyes narrowed. That name, it's in the church register. I saw it on one of the hymn books. Rachel flipped through the other documents. Old journals, pages of scrawled warnings and sketches. One page had just a single phrase, written over and over in black ink. Don't wake the root. Below that, a symbol had been scratched in blood. Not ink. Blood. I don't like this, Rachel muttered. Everything about this is wrong. We already woke it, Lena said, expression grim. Now we either put it back to sleep, or we die here. They gathered what they could: lamp oil, a few sealed cans of food, 2 old lanterns, and rope so brittle it nearly disintegrated in Wes's hands. But it would have to do. With the map rolled and tucked under his arm, Wes opened the back door of the cabin. The mountain loomed beyond, darker than before, as if it had drawn the fog back into itself. The trail to the mine was marked only by warped planks and rusted rails half swallowed by earth. They followed it in silence, the only sound their footfalls and the occasional creak of Lena's lantern. As they approached the gaping maw of the mine again, Rachel paused. There's something you're not telling us, Lena, she said. Lena stopped walking. Her shoulders tensed. What do you mean? I mean, how do you know the seals? The symbols? The voices? Rachel stepped forward, her voice rising. What are you? Wes looked between them. Guys, now's not the time. Lena turned, slowly. Her face was pale in the lantern glow, but her eyes glinted with something deeper. I don't remember everything, she said quietly. But I've seen this before. In dreams. In nightmares. Since I was a kid. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. It's like I've been here before, Lena continued. Not in this life. But another. Wes's stomach twisted. Reincarnation? An echo? Or had the mountain planted her here on purpose? They stepped into the mine. Behind them, the wind whispered. Welcome home. Part 10. The air inside the mine was thick and heavy, pressing against their skin like a living weight. The lanterns flickered, casting jittering shadows on the walls carved rough by pickaxes and rusted rails that plunged into blackness. The smell of wet stone and old sweat mingled with a faint metallic tang: iron, or something older, more ancient. Wes took the lead, clutching the map tightly as they followed the twisted tunnels deeper. The sounds of the forest faded behind them, replaced by the soft drip of water and the distant rumble of shifting earth. Keep your voices low, Lena whispered, voice shaking. The mountain hears. Rachel shot him a wary glance. The mountain hears everything? Lena nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness. It listens for those who would disturb its rest. And it punishes. They passed collapsed shafts and rusted carts long forgotten, graffiti etched in charcoal and blood on the walls, warnings and symbols no one could read, scratches like desperate claw marks, and faded names. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a cavernous space. The ceiling arched high overhead, dripping with mineral formations that glittered faintly in the lantern light. At the center stood a massive stone altar, carved from the mountain itself, covered with the same symbols they'd seen before. This must be Rootwake, Wes breathed. Lena approached the altar, eyes fixed on a deep fissure running through its center. From within, a faint glow pulsed, like a heartbeat. It's alive, she said softly. And it's broken. Rachel swallowed hard. What happens if you don't fix it? Lena shook her head. It wakes fully. The mountain tears itself apart. And so do we. Wes looked down the tunnel behind them. We're trapped in here if that happens. The glow from the altar flickered, then flared bright. A tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. Dust rained down from the cavern roof, and the distant echoes of chanting began again, deeper, louder, coming from the tunnels beyond. Brace yourselves, Wes said, gripping the pipe like a weapon. From the shadows emerged shapes, ghostly figures in tattered mining clothes, their faces gaunt and hollow, eyes glowing faintly red. We have to finish this, Lena whispered, stepping toward the altar. No matter the cost. Part 11. Lena's hands hovered over the cracked altar, fingers trembling as she traced the ancient runes carved into the stone. The cavern's eerie glow pulsed in time with her shallow breaths, casting ghostly light on the specters closing in around them. Their hollow eyes held no malice, only endless sorrow and desperation. Who are they? Rachel whispered, voice barely audible. Those who were lost here, Lena said, voice thick with grief. Trapped between worlds. Bound by the mountain's curse. Wes tightened his grip on the pipe, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement beyond the ghosts. They won't harm us, Lena continued, but they can't leave. They're tethered to this place. A sudden crack echoed through the cavern. The altar shifted, the fissure widening ominously, veins of black stone pulsating like veins filled with dark blood. We don't have much time, Lena said. If the altar breaks, the seal shatters. Rachel swallowed hard, heart pounding in her chest. What happens then? Lena met her gaze. The mountain awakens fully. The darkness spills out. It consumes everything. From the tunnel behind them came a low rumble, growing louder with each passing second. The spirit's sorrowful wails escalated into desperate cries as the cavern shook violently. Wes, help me steady this, Lena said urgently. Together, they pushed against the cracked altar, channeling the energy Lena summoned through her whispered incantations. The glow intensified, the runes flaring with ethereal light. A sudden burst of wind swept through the cavern, scattering dust and sending shadows dancing wildly on the walls. With a shuddering groan, the altar began to mend, cracks knitting together, the black veins retreating. The ghosts closed their eyes, a moment of peace washing over their pale faces. Lena collapsed, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, she breathed. But Wes wasn't convinced. From deeper in the mine came a sinister, guttural growl, a sound no human should make. Something was still down there. And it was coming. Part 12. The growl reverberated through the cavern, a low, guttural sound that made the very walls tremble. Shadows pooled and shifted beyond the reach of the lantern light, coalescing into a shape massive, hulking, and grotesque. Its form was covered in slick, black stone-like armor, cracked and bleeding faint glimmers of fiery red beneath the surface. Wes instinctively stepped between Lena and the creature, pipe raised like a spear. Run, Lena whispered, struggling to stand. No, Wes said, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. We finish this here. Now. The creature let out a deafening roar, shaking loose rocks from the cavern ceiling. The ghosts recoiled but did not flee. Instead, their ethereal forms swirled around the altar, merging into a glowing shield of pale light. Lena raised her hands, chanting words older than the mountain itself. The altar flared with brilliant energy, bathing the cavern in blinding white. Wes charged forward, striking the creature's stone arm with the pipe. The impact sent cracks spidering across its surface, but it barely flinched. Keep the seal intact. Lena cried. It's the only way to stop it. Rachel circled, brandishing a rusted pickaxe she'd found earlier. She swung with desperation, chipping away at the creature's legs, but it was relentless, unstoppable. The cavern shook violently. Dust and debris rained down, and the ground beneath them cracked open, threatening to swallow them whole. Wes felt a sharp pain in his side, a clawed hand had grazed him. He stumbled but didn't fall. With one last chant, Lena thrust her hands toward the altar. The runes blazed with blinding light, and the fissure sealed shut. The creature screamed, a sound of rage and defeat as it was swallowed back into the mountain's depths, dragged down by unseen forces. Silence fell. The ghosts faded, their faces finally peaceful. Wes sank to his knees, gasping for breath. Rachel helped Lena up, tears streaming down her face. We did it, Wes whispered. But at what cost? Lena murmured, looking into the now dark tunnel. The mountain was quiet, for now. But deep below, something ancient still stirred. Part 13. The oppressive silence that followed the creature's retreat was suffocating. The air felt heavier, as if the mountain itself was exhaling after centuries of holding its terrible secret. Wes sat on a jagged rock, running a trembling hand over his injured side. The pain was sharp but manageable. He glanced at Lena, whose face was pale but resolute. Rachel knelt beside them, pulling her knees to her chest. "What now?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lena's eyes scanned the dark tunnel ahead, the map folded loosely in her lap. "We return to the surface," she said finally. "We can't stay here. The mountain will try again. It always does." Wes nodded. "And the seals? Are they all fixed now?" Lena hesitated. "All but the last. The broken one. It's beyond our reach." Rachel's brows furrowed. "Then what?" Lena looked up, meeting their eyes. "We warn others. We tell the story. We make sure no one else dares disturb Rootwake." The cavern grew colder as the weight of her words settled on them. The ghosts had been freed, but the mountain's curse lingered like a shadow in the depths. Wes stood, the pipe feeling heavier in his hands than before. "Let's get out of here." They moved slowly back through the tunnels, the faint glow of their lanterns barely pushing back the darkness. Every step felt like a victory and a warning. Outside, dawn was breaking, casting pale light over the Appalachian peaks. The fog was retreating, revealing the wild beauty of the mountain, untamed and unforgiving. Rachel breathed deeply, the fresh air filling her lungs like a balm. "We survived," she said, half laughing, half crying. Wes looked back at the mine entrance, now sealed once again by earth and stone. "For now," he said. Lena joined them, her expression thoughtful. "Some stories are meant to stay buried." And with that, the mountain fell silent once more. Part 14. Days passed after their escape, but the shadow of Black Hollow clung to them like a second skin. Back in the small town at the mountain's edge, life seemed normal, innocent, but none of them could shake the feeling that the mountain was watching, waiting. Wes sat alone in a diner, nursing a cup of bitter coffee. The map lay folded on the table, edges frayed, a silent reminder of the horrors beneath the earth. Rachel burst through the door, eyes wild with exhaustion and urgency. "We have to go back," she said, voice low and fierce. Wes frowned. "What? After everything? There's something I didn't tell you." She slid into the booth across from him. "When we were in the mine, I saw something else. Something alive. Moving in the shadows deeper than Rootwake." Wes shook his head. "We sealed the last breach. We stopped it." "No," Rachel said firmly. "That wasn't the end. It's still down there. Waiting." Lena arrived moments later, clutching a worn journal. "I found this in the church archives," she said. "It belonged to Thaddeus Crane." Wes opened the journal carefully. The pages were yellowed, filled with frantic handwriting, sketches, and warnings. One passage stood out. "The mountain is a beast, ancient beyond reckoning. It sleeps beneath our feet, bound by stones and faith, but the binding weakens. The Rootwake stirs and calls to those who listen. If broken, the world will drown in darkness." Wes closed the book slowly, heart heavy. "We thought we put it to rest. But it never really sleeps." Rachel leaned in. "We have to warn people. Tell them what's coming." Lena nodded. "The mountain is patient. But it remembers." Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, carrying a sound, barely audible, but unmistakable. A distant, low hum. The mountain was waking again. Part 15. That night, sleep eluded Wes. He sat by the window of the small cabin they had rented, watching the silhouettes of the Appalachian peaks cut sharply against the starless sky. Somewhere in the distance, the wind howled a mournful, ancient sound that tugged at something deep within him. His fingers traced the worn pages of Thaddeus Crane's journal, searching for answers that might not exist. A sudden knock shattered the silence. Wes jumped to his feet, heart racing. He opened the door to find an old man standing there, face weathered and eyes sharp as broken glass. "I hear you've been poking around Black Hollow," the man said, voice low but urgent. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Wes swallowed hard. Who are you? Name's Caleb. I'm one of the few left who remember the old ways. The bindings. The mountain's wrath. Rachel and Lena appeared behind Wes, tense but alert. Caleb stepped inside, glancing warily around. The mountain's hunger is endless. The rootwake isn't just a place, it's a name for the thing beneath. A creature older than any man can fathom. Lena's eyes widened. You've heard the stories too. More than stories, Caleb said. My ancestors built the seals. They knew the cost. But the mountain remembers every crack, every broken stone. And soon, the last seal will fail. Wes clenched his fists. How do we stop it? Caleb shook his head slowly. You can't stop what's coming. Only delay. The mountain demands sacrifice. Rachel's breath caught. Sacrifice? The mountain takes what it's owed. Blood, soul, or shadow. If the seals fail, it will claim us all. Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Wes looked at his friends, determination hardening in his chest. We'll fight, he said. Whatever it takes. Caleb nodded grimly. Then you'll need to prepare. Because the mountain's awakening has only just begun. Part 16. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation and grim determination. Caleb led them deep into the woods, to a hidden shrine carved into a massive oak, its bark etched with faded runes glowing faintly in the twilight. There, he began teaching them ancient rites, chants woven from a language that scraped at the edges of their minds. Binding magic, Caleb explained, voice gravelly. Old as the mountains themselves. It's the only way to reinforce the seals. Lena struggled with the words, her voice shaky but growing stronger with each repetition. Rachel's skepticism gave way to awe, and even Wes felt the weight of something vast stirring inside him as the chants echoed through the forest. One evening, under a blood-red moon, Caleb brought them to the edge of the mountain, where a jagged crack opened in the earth like a wound. From its depths came a cold breath, filled with the scent of earth and decay. This is the broken seal, Caleb said, lighting a circle of salt and charcoal around the fissure. The mountain's wound. If left to fester, it will consume everything. Wes knelt, feeling the chill seep into his bones. How do we fix it? You cannot fix what is broken, Caleb replied grimly. You can only hold it back, bind it again temporarily. Rachel tightened her grip on a ritual dagger, hands trembling. Then we have to do it. Caleb nodded. But it requires a sacrifice. A willing one. The words hung heavy in the night air. Lena looked at them, eyes fierce. If it's the only way, I'll do it. Wes shook his head, stepping forward. No. We do this together. Caleb's gaze sharpened. The mountain doesn't negotiate. It demands one. A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying whispers from the depths below. The mountain was hungry. And it wanted to be fed. Part 17. The night before the ritual, the air grew thick with tension and dread. Around the fire Caleb had built, the group sat in silence, each wrestling with the looming sacrifice. The mountain's hunger felt like a physical weight pressing down on their souls. Rachel broke the silence, voice barely above a whisper. What if we fail? What if the mountain takes everything anyway? Lena looked at her, eyes blazing with determination. Then we'll fall with it. But at least we fight. Wes reached for Lena's hand, a silent promise passing between them. Caleb began preparing the altar, a circle of jagged stones marked with the ancient runes, candles flickering in the breeze. The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse in time with the beating of their hearts. When the moon reached its zenith, they began the chant Caleb had taught them. Their voices rose and fell, weaving a tapestry of sound that stretched across the mountain's spine. As the ritual progressed, the earth trembled. From the fissure came tendrils of shadow, reaching upward like hungry fingers. Wes felt a cold grip tighten around his heart but refused to let go. Lena stepped into the circle at the altar's center, arms raised, chanting louder than the rest. Her body glowed faintly, pale light spilling from her skin. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in fury. The mountain fought back. Then, a brilliant flash. Lena collapsed, breathing ragged, eyes closed. The fissures sealed. The mountain was quiet. But in the darkness, something ancient watched. Waiting. Part 18. Morning light filtered through the thick canopy, casting mottled patterns across the forest floor. Wes knelt beside Lena, whose chest rose and fell in slow, even breaths. Her skin had lost its eerie glow, returning to pale, fragile normalcy. Rachel sat nearby, eyes red-rimmed and distant. Caleb stood silently, gazing toward the mountain with a mixture of relief and unease. "We did it," Wes said softly, though the victory felt hollow. Caleb shook his head. "The mountain always remembers. The seals hold, for now." "Will it come back?" Rachel asked. "Eventually," Caleb replied. "But not in our time. If you keep the bindings strong, it will sleep longer." Lena stirred, opening her eyes slowly. She looked at each of them, a fragile smile touching her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. Wes helped her to sit. "You were incredible." She shook her head. "We were all incredible. Together." The group gathered their things, ready to leave the mountain behind. But as they walked, Wes paused, looking back at the dense woods. The silence was too perfect. The air still hummed faintly with ancient power. The mountain waited patiently. And somewhere, deep beneath the earth, the last seal pulsed faintly, still cracked, still vulnerable. Their fight was far from over. Part 19. Weeks passed, and the wounds, both physical and unseen, slowly began to heal. Wes, Rachel, and Lena returned to their lives, carrying the mountain's shadow with them like a secret tattoo etched onto their souls. But none could fully escape the feeling that the world had shifted beneath their feet. One evening, Wes found himself drawn back to the edge of the Appalachian wilderness, standing where the fog thinned and the trees gave way to jagged rock. His breath caught as a faint melody drifted on the wind, soft, haunting, ancient. It was a lullaby, sung in a language older than time. He scanned the ridge, eyes narrowing. There, carved into the side of the mountain, was a new symbol, fresh and glowing faintly with violet light. A warning. Or an invitation. Wes swallowed hard. Somewhere deep inside, the mountain stirred again. Not as a beast. Not as a monster. But as something far older. Something that remembered. And waited. Part 20. The wind shifted, carrying the mournful lullaby further into the night. Wes's fingers brushed the rough stone beneath the glowing symbol, the cold radiating through his skin like a pulse, alive, aware. His heart thudded in time with the faint hum that seemed to echo from deep within the mountain itself. Behind him, the forest was still, as if holding its breath. "We're not done here," Wes muttered, voice barely audible. Rachel appeared beside him, her expression grave. The mountains changed. It's no longer just about survival. It's about understanding. Lena joined them, carrying the heavy journal of Thaddeus Crane. "We have to learn its language, its history, before the next awakening." They stood in silence, bound by the weight of their shared purpose. The Appalachian Mountains stretched endlessly before them, wild, mysterious, eternal. Beneath their feet, ancient forces stirred. And the story was far from over. Part 21. Days turned into weeks as Wes, Rachel, and Lena devoted themselves to unraveling the secrets of the mountain. The journal of Thaddeus Crane became their guide, filled with cryptic symbols, archaic language, and stories passed down from long-forgotten generations. Each page peeled back layers of history tangled with dark magic, ancient rituals, and an uneasy pact between man and mountain. One night, around a flickering campfire nestled at the forest's edge, Lena traced her finger over a faded map. "This," she said, "is where the first settlers tried to seal the mountain's heart. Rootwake isn't just a place, it's a name for the source of this power. The mountain's core." Rachel shivered, staring into the flames. "If that core awakens, nothing will be safe." Wes looked up at the stars, their cold light distant and indifferent. "We need to go there," he said quietly. "We have to confront it before it's too late." Lena nodded. We'll face the mountain together. But this time, we're not just fighting to survive, we're fighting to understand. The next morning, they packed their gear and set out toward the heart of the Appalachian wilderness, deeper than any had dared venture. The forest grew denser, the air thick with ancient power. Shadows shifted and whispered, and the ground beneath them thrummed with a low, rhythmic pulse like the steady beat of a living heart. As they approached a narrow gorge, the earth cracked open in front of them, revealing a cavern that glowed with a light both terrible and beautiful, pulsing with life and death intertwined. The mountain was calling. And they were ready. Part 22. The cavern's entrance yawned before them like a mouth ready to swallow the world whole. Wes, Rachel, and Lena exchanged glances, a mixture of fear, resolve, and something deeper, a strange reverence for the power they were about to face. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of wet stone and ancient magic. Pulsing veins of light ran like rivers through the walls, illuminating the vast chamber's depths. The heartbeat like rhythm grew louder, vibrating in their bones, syncing with their own pulse. Lena stepped forward, her voice steady as she recited the words from the journal, a chant of binding, of peace, of respect for the mountain's ancient spirit. As the chant echoed through the cavern, the glowing light coalesced into a massive form, neither fully stone nor flesh, but a shifting, breathing entity that shimmered with power both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The mountain's heart. Its eyes, deep pools of molten rock and crystal, locked on them ancient, wise, and full of sorrow. "You have come," it spoke, voice like grinding stone and rushing water. "Why do you disturb my slumber?" Wes swallowed hard. "Because the mountain is waking, and with it, destruction." Rachel stepped forward, voice steady. "We want to understand. We want to help." The mountain's form rippled, a pulse of energy washing over them. "To help is to accept the balance, to give and to take, life and death intertwined. The seals bind me, but they also bind the land. Harmony is fragile." Lena nodded. "Then teach us. Teach us how to keep that balance." For a long moment, silence held sway. Then the mountain's voice softened. "Very well." The air shifted, and the chamber filled with visions of ancient forests, of the first settlers making their pact, of power given and price paid. They watched, learned, and understood. The mountain was not a beast to be conquered. It was a living force, a guardian and destroyer intertwined. And their fight was no longer to stop it, but to live with it. Part 23. The visions faded, leaving the cavern bathed in a gentle, pulsing light. Wes blinked, feeling a deep calm settle over him, unlike anything he had ever experienced before. The mountain's presence was no longer a source of fear but of awe, a reminder of the delicate thread on which their world balanced. Lena stepped forward, voice steady but reverent. "We promise to honor the pact, to protect the balance." The mountain's eyes shimmered brighter, casting prismatic light across the cavern walls. "Then you shall be the mountain's guardians. Bound to its fate, as it is bound to yours." A soft warmth spread through their bodies, a connection, a bond woven by the mountain's ancient magic. "You will hear its call when the time comes," the mountain whispered. "And you will stand to protect this land, this life, or let it perish." Rachel's eyes glistened with tears. "We accept." Wes, feeling the weight and honor of their new responsibility, nodded. "We'll keep the balance." Outside, the mountain seemed to sigh, the oppressive fog lifting, the forest brightening as dawn's first light poured over the peaks. Their journey had changed. They were no longer victims of the mountain's curse, but its stewards. The Appalachian Mountains remained wild, mysterious, and eternal, but now, watched over by those who understood its heart. As they emerged from the cavern, the first rays of sunlight touched their faces. And for the first time, hope bloomed. Final Part 24. Years passed, and the story of Black Hollow and the Rootwake became legend, whispered around campfires, written in journals, and passed down through generations. Wes, Rachel, and Lena kept their promise, returning off into the mountain's heart, guardians of a fragile peace that balanced on the edge of darkness and light. The mountain itself remained wild and unknowable, a force beyond any single person's control, but now it had allies, those who listened to its whispers, who understood its needs and limits. And in the quiet moments, beneath the canopy of stars, they could still hear the ancient lullaby drifting on the Appalachian wind, a reminder of what had been lost, what had been saved, and the delicate balance they swore to protect. The mountain's story was far from over. But for now, the echoes of the past had settled. The bindings held. And the Appalachian Mountains breathed easy.